So how big, high level, as far as, you were at rock bottom. I mean, you went through some crazy adversity on all three fronts. At this point, what do things look like for you and your family personally? You don't have to give us exact numbers per se, but how does the business how has it treated you financially?
Extremely well. It's one of the reasons why I was at the wealth conference learning about some new things in terms of wealth building, becoming my own banker,
Yeah.
and diversifying in other areas, maybe real estate, et cetera, on more the land flipping side and looking at other
Hmm.
opportunities to grow that. Getting
Hmm.
smarter about taxation and
Hmm.
taxation structures. And ways to play by the rules, but you still have
Yeah.
opportunities to reduce taxation. So I've got some new relationships there, which are cool, which has
Yeah.
been fun, and that's given me a lot easier ability to keep more of my capital, which goes right back into the markets and products and people that power our economy, which has been a blessing, not just to me and my family, but my others. And so this year, because we're getting to the size that we need to, those are things we're working on this year. We operate as a family unit. We homeschool our girls. I'm home here every day. We get to go to co-ops and do things together. Like I said, tomorrow I'm teaching that co-op class for the next 14 weeks, which is going to be fun. So I get to be there, and my daughters are going to be a part of that. And so I just get to do life very differently now, because I chose to choose a lifestyle-driven business model that allowed me to keep that fun, people, and profit priority in the right order. And that's basically
Actually,
how we
touch on
operate.
that because I do have some rapid fire questions. I'll throw at you, but
Okay.
touch on that real quickly. Because I'm an entrepreneur. I have several different businesses that I run myself, and
Mm-hmm.
it's very easy to just keep working all the time.
Mm-hmm. Oh, sure.
and
That's guys.
and yeah. But
Or
do you
people, I
have
should
it?
say.
How do you have things? How do you have that structured as far? How do you stop yourself from doing that? You've already touched on it some, but from a kind of a day to day,
Yeah,
personal level for the entrepreneur out there, how can they structure their week to make sure they don't go overboard and
absolutely.
don't overwork themselves?
So I don't take calls unless I absolutely need to. If there's a justifiable reason for that call, I will take it. If it has an email or audio or a Loom capability, I'll do that
Hmm.
instead. So
Yeah.
that gives me the opportunity to be more mobile, right? I use my mobile device a lot more. I try to balance that too, because I don't always want my children seeing the mobile device in my hand, but at the same time, they also see that as a tool, the same way I'd be swinging a hammer if I was building a house. So
Sure.
we address that in terms of mindset, and we address that in terms of the tools and whether or not I can actually set it down if needed. And the answer is I can. And so what I do is remind myself that I can, and give
Hmm.
myself permission to step away from the business. Right.
Sure.
And I know that sounds weird, but
No,
when
I
you think
get
about it,
it.
you have to give
Yeah.
yourself permission to say
Yeah.
it's okay that for the next 2 hours, I'm not involved in any business activities today. Why?
Yeah.
Because I can.
The truth is, I mean, if you don't set that boundary, it's never ending. The work is never done.
It can. And
Um,
you know what? If you have a calendar and you need to schedule things because that works well for your profile, your mind, then
yeah.
literally mark it an hour that says go play with the kids, or an hour that says go have coffee with the wife, or an hour that says, schedule it and be intent. 21 days to a habit. It doesn't mean you're going to do it all the time. It just means when you start to build that habit of giving yourself permission and actually putting it down as a time, like the way you would do with any call or this podcast,
Yeah.
then the next step is actually be actionable on it, take
Yeah.
and execute on it. And then you
Right.
start to free yourself up from, trading time for money, because that's all you're
Right.
doing
Yeah.
anyway.
No, absolutely. If you look at someone's calendar and their checkbook, their bank account transactions, you can essentially see what their priorities are, whether they've been intentional about it
Can
or not. That's exactly,
learning
regardless of
that
what
is
they
so
say.
big, so big, because then you start to realize, well, I can actually make more with less.
Yeah, that's
Life can
awesome.
be valued very differently. And it seems very odd to be on this side of it now, but trying to remember what it was to be on the other side. All
Sure.
right. And so trying to keep that as a real, viable emotion that's still alive in me helps me to create balance in it. So, that's part of the reason why I'm okay talking about it, is because
Yeah.
that it creates balance, and memories are there so the history does not repeat itself.
No, that's really good. I'm going to fire off a few rapid fire questions,
Okay.
and then we'll talk about a little bit more about your business
I like
today.
the green M&Ms.
All
No,
right,
was that the kind of
cross
questions
that
we're talking
one
about?
off.
Oh,
I
okay.
guess
Got it.
that's.
Nailed it.
I guess we can end the show then.
We're done.
Um, what's one thing that people misunderstand about you?
They think that I'm too aggressive or mean or not as personable as maybe they think I should be.
Okay, I can relate to that.
I'm 6'5", so I'm also not your average.
Physically imposing a little bit. I shouldn't say a little bit, because then when I meet you, anyway.
We'll see.
If you could go back, and you already threw this one at us already, but if you could give your 18-year-old self some advice,
Right.
what would it be?
Stay the course, man. Don't change a thing.
Nice. I love it, because you've grown, you've taken lessons from your adversity, and you've applied them, and you're a better person because because you went through all of that?
What would I change today? People would say, well, you'd want more money. Well, no, and that's not really the point. Again, you have to look at profit as more than just financial, right?
Sure.
The saying for a lot of us, health is wealth, right? And you have to understand the values in different things at different times and how to reprioritize those. So no, I would say don't change that. You need those things. You are not going to mature without them.
That's great. If you could have coffee with any historical figure, who would it be?
Any historical figure have coffee? Oh, wow.
They could still be alive today or not. And it doesn't have to be your favorite person ever.
You know, it would be my uncle.
Okay. Why is that?
He's the quote unquote rich dad in my rich dad, poor dad story. My dad was a hardworking man, still is, 80 years old, lives just up the hill. We can literally go run up the dirt path and see my parents that live on the hill on our property.
Cool.
But the end result is that he was more of an entrepreneur. He had a boat company. He got involved in a lot of opportunity later on in money and business, and gave me the opportunity to see things very differently about finances and money, and started setting me on that path long ago to understand better the things I know now that I didn't understand when he showed me then. With my dad, who's very strong, blue collar worker, etc. Money was a 4-letter word in our house. We didn't say it.
Yeah.
Didn't talk about
So
it.
what's your view on entrepreneurship across? Should everyone be an entrepreneur? Should everyone have a side hustle, or is it not for everyone? How do you view that?
No, not everyone is an entrepreneur.
I would agree.
Doesn't mean you can't be entrepreneurial in a business that may be led by an entrepreneur. Again, if you know your profile and you know what works well, you know how to be okay in your space, confident in what you do and where you are. And that doesn't always mean you're the leader who's going to take the arrows going up the hill first. That is not the sexiest position. Sometimes it's okay to be number 2. All right. In that case, you're taking less arrows. So no, I don't. And I think that not everybody is in the right mindset for the risk that it requires, that most people think comes very easy to some of us. And it actually comes from a lot of school of hard knocks lessons.
So speaking of lessons learned in business, what's one thing that's surprised you wouldn't have thought of 10 years ago that you've learned from business?
One of the things in business that surprises me is the amount of different ways you can actually make money in today's world, and how many people are still complaining that they can't find a way to make money when there are so many opportunities. It's probably more analysis paralysis than anything else.
Sure.
I keep every once in a while I get people to come and they're like, well, I'm doing this and here's how I make my money and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh man, I never thought of that. Like, good for you. Like, that's amazing. And I'm not talking about OnlyFans, just so we're clear. And I'm not talking about selling feet pics on the internet, because I suppose that's entrepreneurial too. But
right.
With the internet has come the opportunity to create all kinds of income opportunities. That doesn't mean you have to be entrepreneurial. It means you may have something in the side hustle or hobby business, but I would always caution against that from a true business perspective. That is actually a limiting mindset belief. Maybe people don't understand it, but let me explain. If you go and you say, this is a side hustle, I need to make X amount to make this meet or this thing occur, or whatever I'm trying to do with that money, and then I'm only going to be able to set aside like 1 hour a day or a week to do that, you already created limiting mindset beliefs. The entrepreneurial or the person who recognizes business would say, I will do whatever it takes. I will stay up to whenever it takes. I will make that happen no matter what it takes. I will get this done. I am in an abundance mindset now, and I recognize scarcity very different. It hit me very hard when I got out of the W-2 situation at IBM, and I left to become a freelance management consultant and start my own management consulting firm right out of the first 5 years of my entrepreneurial life. All I recognized is that when I went to those first contracts and I shot the moon and I said, sure, $250 an hour, I'll come back and do this. IBM said at that point, sure, go ahead, let's do this. So I went from a W-2 employee to like less than 18 months later, making $250 an hour on their billables. But all I was doing was trading time for money and more money in a nicer glass house.
Right.
And so it took a long time to recognize the differences in that, in scarcity and abundance, and realize how sneaky it is. So now if you're going to do business, you need to do business as a business.
Yeah.
Do not treat it as a side hustle or a hobby.
Right.
Already you're creating scarcity and limiting beliefs, and you're going to set up yourself for opportunities. So to
me, I think of the Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow quadrant. Essentially, if you take that trading time for money as in a business, you're essentially in that self-employed quadrant still, which is not the same as actually running a business. You just traded. You're working for yourself, yes, but you have another job that you're probably working 20 to 40% more than you were as a W-2.
It's another opportunity with different leashes and different masters.
Yeah, great way of saying it. Let's talk about your current business and the opportunities that you have for people out there.
So currently we are involved in the launching and growing of e-commerce companies. We focus predominantly starting with the Amazon FBA channel for private label companies to start up. Our goal is to build that, what we call the platinum principle, which is a cash flow business that can exit for greater amounts than any time during the business building phase. So for that reason, we build a structure of a business with the exit in mind. So we launch products into ecom. We start with Amazon, and then from Amazon, we move into multiple channels, and then eventually we exit that business. Predominantly focused on that for ourselves. We have a small coaching and mastermind group that also participates called our Business Builders. I'm typically looking at around 5 people a month that join that. Not a lot, and I'm very choosy about who gets involved. Don't have a sales team. Everyone talks to me. It's an application process. I want to qualify the right people in my network. From there, network is net worth. So my uncles taught me long ago, it's who you know that gets you in, and it's what you know that keeps you there. So getting involved with that community of people who are building as well is an opportunity for those who will qualify for those positions. And then we help them build companies. We work with them. We have done for you components of working with them, but we keep them at 100% ownership in that company. And then we help them exit that business later on by teaching them how to do the whole business model and then showing them how to replicate it so that they can.
So what's the specific profile or avatar of the ideal person you work with?
So ideally, they typically balance between a D and a C in terms of personality and DISC, because they can start it, but they also have the consistency to keep it going. That is a little bit of a unique hybrid in the people. So a lot of times they bring someone with them who fits that opposite profile. Could be, we got a lot of couples in here. We've got couples working with children who are helping them grow their businesses. We've got individual entrepreneurs and their partners of years coming in and working together because they know their strengths and weaknesses. And sometimes we have people who come in as solopreneurs that hedge on our strengths and weaknesses and to help them in reverse overcome any challenges of consistency and mindset they may not have as we coach and mentor them and move them into advisory roles. So that person is typically more conservative because that kind of fits with the nature of business. They are more, they've been married for quite a long time. They typically understand the capitalization requirements of business. They know they might lack knowledge in certain areas. And like me, if I'm going to go start doing land flipping, I'm going to pay the coach who does land flipping and help him teach me how to do it, because I'm not going to waste time trying to figure that all on my own. And so they understand the value of education and knowledge in the world, not necessarily institutional knowledge, but knowledge by association, which would be working with a mentor and somebody who's going to teach you how to do this. And they're typically those who are looking for other types of income streams. Amazon can be passive later on. It's not passive to start it up. It can create what I call almost automated income. So if you think working 10 to 15 hours a week in your business, but maintaining a multi-7-figure business with very strong profits is good, and I mean 18 to 25% net profit, then that's the kind of model e-commerce can provide for you. It can provide a lifestyle-driven business, like I've shown. And then you can replicate that operator by operator, channel by channel. So you're not limited to the growth and opportunity once you set the first foundation in place.
That's awesome.
So those folks usually understand all that. They get it. They've been looking for it. Maybe they've been riding around for a year or 2 or 3, bouncing off all the courses and make money gurus and the done for you scams of auto shipping and Walmart automation and stuff and all this nonsense, because it doesn't sound right to their ears. And then they recognize when they understand someone else is speaking business language, and they recognize we're building businesses with intrinsic value.
Yeah. I love it. That's fantastic. Couple more questions here before we wrap up. What is a book or two that you could recommend for my audience?
So there are books that help challenge me in life. Well, I mean, I'm going to go with the obvious one for me personally, and there's a lot to learn from the Bible. If you study and go through it, many lessons about life and finances and even raising your kids. From the world side, if you look at like Feel the Fear and Do It Anyways, that's a mantra I've literally set in my life by Susan Jeffries. Most of the principles she extols are very good for just reminding yourself that you are going to have fear in life and business, but you should probably do it anyways to get over that fear and expand your thing, right? And then the question behind that she asks is, what's the worst that can happen? Well, I've faced it. And some of you are afraid of it, and you're not willing to push that risk because you're afraid of the outcome. But I'm telling you, there's worse things that can happen. You can do anything you need to up to in death. So you got to get out there and make it happen. And the final book is Good to Great. I know it sounds like an old and a little bit of a cliche, but Jim Collins really nailed it. Even if 20% of the data is now outdated, the principles lined in that book of determining where you are in business. I'm a hedgehog, okay? And if you read the book, you'll understand what I'm talking about. But the end result is when I get into something and I put my teeth on it, I'm not going to let go. And I'm going to do it with everything possible. That's both a positive and a negative for me. If I don't have a good support and community or base of people I trust around me, I'll end up like that guy who crashed the business. But I also need to be that guy because that is intrinsically who I am. And the people around me now understand that, and they know that if they let me go, but they also help me stay within balance, everyone gains the opportunity. And so we work well in that way. But I'm that hedgehog, Good to Great by Jim Collins. It's a great study in business.
That's great. That's 3 very good recommendations there. I guess the Bible is 66. So actually 68 68 books you just recommended.
68 if you break it down. 68 books of reading, that'll take you through the next few years. Yeah,
that was an efficient way of recommending that many books.
No doubt.
So looking back just at all the adversity you've faced, I know you said
Sure.
you wouldn't trade it in and do it over again, but what's one or two just high level lessons learned that the listener can take away?
Surround yourself with the right people and life gets a lot easier. If they don't sound right, if you're more positive and they sound more negative, you might need to distance yourself a little bit. If you see people that are positive, they may be doing masking activity with productivity, so be careful to balance that out as well. So there's a median level of life where you try to find balance in between. Don't be so extreme. Try to find a balance that allows you to work within the different types of personalities and gives you the freedom to be you. That's a huge life lesson.